Maelstrom Balloons fans, you're familiar with the term truth is stranger than fiction, and then you really can't make this stuff up. Here's what it is. Here's a prime example that the Zimmerman trial has just taken a new turn for the weird and really, really wrong. Now revelations have come forward that jurors during the Zimmerman trial had steak dinners, fancy pedicures, trips to local museums, all on the taxpayer dime. The decision was made to pamper the jury for a number of reasons, none of which have been exposed yet. As one Florida attorney, Randy Reep, he pointed out, these women, of course, are not criminals, yet we took them from their families. While we did not say this then, now it is clear half of the country is going to very vocally find fault with your dedicated effort. A bloomin' onion at Outback would not adequately reimburse these women for the bitterness some will level at them for their jury service. Oh, okay. Well, now apparently you need some kind of special compensation for being the jury, your civic duty, on a really big trial. Well, I wish everybody who served jury who had that kind of difficulty could get something like that. Now, this is some of the things that they were allowed to do according to the sheriff's office. Jurors watched television and movies, exercised at a hotel fitness center, spent weekends visited by their friends and family. Perhaps they're not familiar with what the word sequestered means. Now, Addicting Info actually contacted them and asked them about this, and this is what they said. Just verified with Heather Smith for the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. She states, generally speaking, jurors serving on the Zimmerman trial were afforded 2 hours of visiting privilege with family of friends each weekend. I asked what she meant by generally speaking, and she states there were more opportunities afforded to jurors, but not all took advantage. In addition to this, according to some reports, those visits were unsupervised. So what you're saying is that the jurors who were sequestered had unmonitored access to outside information, to people outside of the trial who had information that they're not supposed to know. But none of this was monitored. Yeah, you can't be doing that. This is a very clear violation of rules. They're supposed to be sequestered away from the rest of the public. This is not right. This is not the proper conduct for the court. I'm not depending on whoever's fault it is, actually. Now, this is a clear indication of jury tampering. We're all familiar with jurist B37, the one that spoke out to the media and is now making a book deal. It now shows that there was significant jury tampering at the trial. The potential book was always intended to be a respectful observation of the trial from my and my husband's perspectives. The juror was in contact with her husband during the trial while they were trying to get a book deal. So what you're saying is this juror had indirect contact with a publisher during a time in which she's supposed to be sequestered. But this is absolutely unacceptable. Her husband was holding perspective talks was going to give perspective and strong enough to write a book on the given subject. He was given unsupervised access to his wife during the trial, which means he was getting information from her in order to put into the book. She admitted that the decision was reached. Her decision was reached with information that was not presented at the trial. Meaning she got outside information. She admits she got information outside the trial that she was not supposed to have. This is what's called a mistrial. Now, there could be serious lawsuits as a result of this, depending on who it is that's eventually going to take the blame for this. This is going to be a potential legal absolute nightmare for the state of Florida. And they could be held liable for all kinds of damages, all kinds of stuff that, shouldn't have gone on. The state has a responsibility to make sure that there's an untampered jury, which they clearly did fail to do in this case. Now add to it the money that juror B37 could anticipate from such a book deal, which would be worth far more if they got a non-guilty verdict than a guilty verdict. So they were looking at a potential post-trial payoff negotiated between the husband and the publisher. So she now had a monetary incentive for George Zimmerman to walk. So we've already seen that she was not sequestered properly and was not an untampered juror. And now it's been exposed that she had a profit motive in seeing Zimmerman walk away. It doesn't necessarily mean that's why he walked, but this shows what was going on that shouldn't have. An interview of juror B37 was reviewed. Now, like when you go into to do a jury duty, they interview you, and that interview that she did was reviewed by a legal expert, Gail Brashes-Krug, and this is what he found. She really wants to be a juror. She seems to be going out of her way to minimize the disruptive effect of a multi-week trial on her life. Jurors rarely do that. She's also taking pains to avoid saying anything particularly sympathetic to either side. Both sides tend to be very skeptical of jurors who are particularly eager to serve on high-profile cases. Often they have their own agendas or are attention seekers. This trial is a terrible mess. Like, there's no telling what's going to happen as a result of this. There's very clearly, this woman had a profit motive to tamper with the judicial system. Her duty as a juror clearly had a there was a profit motive to interfere with that. Now, this indicates clear misconduct. This is tremendous misconduct, and there's going to be a hell of a fallout for something like this. Now, what does this mean? Look at what's happened. The contradictions of capitalism. It's perpetuation of the contradictions between people. I mean, the whole situation with private property. Why was this man walking around in an alienating society, walking around playing cop? Why did he feel the need to do that? Because of problems within him that were made worse by a society that is alienating. I'll add to this the racial dimension. Capitalism is notorious and very good at perpetuating racial tensions between people. And a lot of this had to do with what? Him trying to supposedly protect property from someone who was causing mischief, supposedly. So we see a whole ton of contradictions that tied up to make this situation the way it was. And then what do we have on top of it? The profit motive. The profit motive interfering with the case itself. Now, even when the system wants to go through and actually seek justice, even there, the profit motive in this situation was allowed to pervert the entire legal process. And then people wonder why society is the way it is. I mean, this is just a high-profile example of something like this happening. These kinds of things happen all the time. This is just a very visual version of that. These contradictions of capitalism cannot be solved in this system. And that is one of the reasons why the system has to go.